Hi, I've got a question for you. Have you ever felt absolutely confused and conflicted about a big decision in your life? Like maybe you were trying to figure out whether or not to take a particular job or stay in an existing job, or maybe you were even trying to figure out if you should be in the relationship that you're in, or maybe leave the relationship. If you haven't had those kind of struggles, congratulations, because almost everybody I know has been confused and conflicted about some kind of a big decision. But even if it's not big, almost all of us have experienced it around small decisions that can really frustrate us. And then the other thing is that sometimes we make up our minds and then we don't seem to follow through for some reason. So, I'm going to give you some very simple tools to overcome that. It is absolutely my favorite way to approach any kind of confusion or confliction that goes on inside me. And I've helped a lot of clients overcome their confusion and their internal conflict too, so that they gain that clarity and they can step into the life that they're wanting to live. Hi, my name is Veronica Monet, and I am an internal family systems informed coach. Internal family systems is one of my favorite ways of approaching the trauma and drama that can take place inside of us and the ways in which we get confused about what we actually want to do in our lives. We call it IFS for short, and going forward, that's mostly what I'm going to say. Instead of repeating the long word internal family systems, I'm going to be talking about IFS. You've probably encountered it at some point because it's gaining a lot of traction and becoming very popular in a lot of self-help and healing circles. So, you know, we are often kind of wondering, I made up my mind. Why is it that I'm still confused? Or why is it that I can't seem to accomplish the thing I said I was going to do? I'm thinking about sometimes something as simple as going on a diet or starting a workout routine or taking up meditation. It can be very difficult sometimes to get that follow through. But I'm also thinking about, as a relationship coach, so many people that I work with are just trying to figure out, should I be in this marriage? Should I be in this relationship? Should I marry this person? Those kind of decisions can really be confusing and agonizing. So, I really want to give you a reason to feel good about all of that confusion. Okay, so the thing is, we're all incredibly complicated. You're very complicated. Inside of us are a lot of different personalities, and each one of them has their own agenda. And sometimes they work at cross purposes. That's why you can find a lot of difficulty starting a meditation practice. You would have a part that would say, I really want to get good at meditation. I think it would be good for me. And then you'd have another part that would say, I really want to have more time. I don't have enough time. You see already, the part that wants more time is probably going to keep arguing with the part that wants to take time. So that's kind of a simple example, but let's look at what this looks like inside of us. So at the very center of our being is self. Self is ancient, it's wise, it has all the answers, and it's that place when you feel most at peace with yourself. Surrounding self are what we call exiles and protectors. Now, the protectors fall into two camps. We've got the managers. Managers are kind of like, well, sometimes it's something as simple as time management, right? Or managing money. They're pretty logical, sensible, proactive. I depend on my managers for so much, and I would imagine that you do too. Then we've got the firefighters. The firefighters are doing stuff that is meant to make sure the house doesn't burn down and you don't die. They take on the really extreme threats to your safety. Now, here's the problem with the firefighters. Some of them are busy protecting those exiles. What's an exile? An exile is like an inner child, but you probably have more than one. And your inner children are very vulnerable, and that's why the firefighters are there to protect them. Unfortunately, sometimes the firefighters get really agitated and try to protect your exiles when there isn't a lot of cause to be doing this. This would be a familiar experience that you've probably had at some point of quote unquote overreacting. Like you wonder, why did I get so emotional about that? Well, you probably had a firefighter that was really trying to keep you safe. And it got confused on its timelines. It thought that you were still back in your childhood and helpless and small. And here you are, a full grown adult who can take care of yourself. So the reason we want to start to understand this internal collection of sub-personalities is because we are going to want to get to know them and hopefully help them calm down a little bit so that they're working with us instead of against us. We call this the bus driver. I want to help you be the bus driver, even though your bus is probably full of a lot of unruly children. So just keep in mind, firefighters are there for emergencies. Managers take care of the practical things. Exiles are oftentimes what they are trying to protect. And they're trying to protect them from things that probably occurred in the past. So when you start to have self, you're going to bring 8 different beautiful characteristics to this internal inquiry. And you've got to find a way to embody self, and we'll talk about that in a minute, so that you're able to bring what we call the 8 C's of IFS. Those include compassion, curiosity, calmness, clarity, courage, connectedness, confidence, and creativity. And I particularly love starting off with that compassion and curiosity and winding up with confidence and creativity, which is where you really start to get a lot of traction on the things that you want to bring in your life. Yourself, that higher self of you, the part of you that is ancient and wise, really has all the answers. And I think it's really important to remember that, so that whenever you're working with a coach or a therapist or a spiritual guide, that you are remembering that their job is to help you connect to your higher self. And that when you get connected, when you get past the trauma and the drama, when you're able to calm everything down inside here, you're going to know. You're just going to know. And what a beautiful thing that is to know what the next thing is that you want to do. Unfortunately, it's a little easier said than done. And that's because of this thing we call triggers. Almost all of us have triggers of one sort or another. It might be a particular type of person or a season or a time of day or a location, a tone of voice, a particular word. But almost all of us have something that kind of sets us off and we find ourselves contracting or reacting. And that's often the thing that's engaging a firefighter. Firefighters are pretty good at bringing in those fear responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is where you praise somebody that you're frightened of. Whenever you see yourself doing those sort of things, you can know that you're in a place of being triggered. And we want to get to a place of calm. But the first thing you got to do is got to go in and find those parts and start developing a rapport with them. And I like to think of it as basically, I am a wiser, loving adult who's going to go have a conversation with the children that live inside me. And I've got to bring so much love to them, so much caring, so much appreciation for what they've been through and all the ways that they are trying to either get my attention, which is often what exiles do. They're trying to get your attention. And sometimes they'll even attack your health to try to get your attention. And then the protectors, the managers and the firefighters that are really, really trying to keep me and all those exiles safe. So bringing that compassion is just a really important thing. And there is a 6-step process by which we do this. We call this the 6 steps of IFS. We find, we focus, we flesh out, we feel into, we befriend, and then we deal with the fear. So the find is step 1. How do we find those parts? They sometimes arrive as feelings. It might be a sensation inside your body. It could be a thought in your head, something that just is kind of troubling or persistent. And you start to realize that it's interfering with something that maybe you want to feel calm, but it won't let you feel calm, or you want to make a decision, but it won't let you make a decision. That's a part. So then you want to go look inside yourself and find it. Now, I have found that for some of my clients, this shows up as a visual, like they see something. Sometimes it's just a feeling, a sensation in a body part. Sometimes it's pretty evolved. They like have personalities, names, and they can describe, they could draw pictures of them. We're all very different. And even though we all have these sub-personalities, they show up in different ways inside of us. So, find out what your language around that is. And then when you've found this sensation or this visual image or this thought, then you want to focus on it. And that means that you're just going to bring your attention to the part that you just found. And you're going to spend some time gathering your attention and let the part show itself to you in whatever way it wants. This whole step, these 6-step process, they're pretty slow and deliberate. And just think about this as kind of like a sacred thing that you're going through. You're taking these parts of yourself really seriously. Okay. If at some point you want to speed this up and hurry up and convince the parts to stop bothering you, that's a manager, by the way. Just ask them if they could step aside and let you do this work. Okay, so we have found the part. We're focusing on the part. Next, we're going to flesh it out. We're going to allow the part to contact us in whatever way it wants. And we're going to just see, do I have an image? Does it make a sound? Is this part trying to tell me anything? Maybe there's no words and images, but I have body sensations. Now we're going to feel towards it. And as we feel towards that part, we're just going to start to notice any reactions that this part as you becomes aware of. So are you patient? Or do you want it to go away quickly? I have parts I'm like, no, I don't want that part. But I'm sorry, we get the parts that we have. Can you find this place inside you that will allow this part to be who it wants to be and what it wants to be? Or do you find yourself wanting to control it? So how do you feel about this part? Is your heart open to this part? See, we're kind of checking back in. I just want to be clear that anything that's reactive or judgmental or critical is another part. And as you're doing this, you're going to find out, wow, I'm complicated. I had no idea I had so many parts. And at first, it's kind of overwhelming for most people, but after a while, it actually becomes beautiful because then you start to understand just how amazing you are. I sometimes think about this like the microbiome. Human DNA is actually pretty sparse. We have less DNA than a banana, we are primarily composed of microbiome. Microbiome is in our gut, yes, but it's also surrounding our heart, and it's up in our brain, and it's even in our skin. So just knowing you are an amazing collection of parts, I think is, after you get past the confusion and the overwhelm, it's actually pretty inspiring. Okay, so now we're going to get to know more about this part. And one of the first questions that we ask the part is like, when did you first get this job? Like, what is your job? What is it that you do? And do you like the job? Do you wish you could do it some other way, maybe? And just, when did you start doing it? It's really helpful to find out the age of this part. If it's arrived, like when you're 6 years old, it's maybe needs to be updated about who you are. And you can gently introduce the idea that you're a grown up now to this part, and really start helping it to understand more about you. But first, you want to always be curious and come to know this part, and show it lots of compassion and empathy. So, all protectors are afraid of something. And, we are working so hard, a lot of us that are working on self-improvement, working so hard to try to move past our fears. Because I think most of us know at this point that fear is the opposite of love. So if you can find the ways that this protector is scared, it's really going to help you start to feel more calm inside, because that part will get to share with you its fears. What is it most afraid of? If it's not doing its job, what terrible thing is going to happen? Almost all protectors are afraid, well, if I don't do this job, then this thing is going to happen. And sometimes they've got a really good point. I have parts that have told me, well, I do this because if I don't do it, you'll do that thing you did last time and we'll be in a really bad way. And I oftentimes will say to the part, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. That is true. And thank you for pointing that out to me. Thank you for helping me understand why you're here, why you need to be here, and what it is that I can work on so that you don't have to work so hard. Yeah, I'm sure you must be noticing I'm having a full-blown conversation with these parts. That is the IFS way. It's really kind of mind-blowing. At first, it might seem a little strange and awkward, like, why am I talking to myself as if there's a lot of different me's? But it really does work. And that's one of the things that I like. I like things that work. So once you have started to do this, you're going to learn a lot about yourself that you didn't know before. And you will come to understand certain parts of yourself more deeply than you did before. And gradually, you're going to start to see that you actually have more choice, more agency, that you feel more empowered in what you're doing. And I just think that is something I've spent decades searching for and working towards. And I have myself gone through a lot of different types of coaching and a lot of different types of therapy. This is the most effective one that I've discovered. I find that it is just moving boulders that were stuck for years, things I didn't think were ever going to move, ever going to change. And it has shifted them in ways that I had started to think might not even be possible. So imagine this little course in IFS is not exactly going to be clear to you. You're probably going to have questions and confusions. And I want to invite you to reach out to me with those questions. I've put my website and my email on this slide so that I'm easy to contact. And just in case you're someplace where you can't read the slide right now, I'll just say it. My website is theshamefreezone.com. You can also get there just by putting in shamefreezone.com or veronicamonet.com. They'll come up to the same website. And you can email me at veronica@theshamefreezone.com. That's veronica@theshamefreezone.com. I'm happy to send you links to other resources or possibly work with you if you'd like to do this stuff with help. I will say this. I work with my parts on my own on a daily basis, and it's an invaluable part of my journey, my self-improvement journey, my healing journey, my therapeutic journey. But I also work every single week with my IFS therapist, and I would not have it any other way. There are things that happen with somebody who's trained in IFS that cannot happen when I'm just doing it by myself. And that is true of all IFS therapists, by the way. Part of their work is to always work with another IFS therapist and to keep working on those parts, because it's kind of a never-ending exploration, and it's a really beautiful journey. So I wish you well in your journey, and I'm here if you want my help or my support, and blessings to you.